everyone, and welcome to another lesson. We hope you guys are all well and hope you're carrying on with our lessons and you're enjoying them as we delve further and further into how we study the wisdom of Kabbalah in society. And welcome back, Anthony.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now you see him and maybe tomorrow you won't. Okay, but it's always good to have him on board. So today we're going to do a special article from the writings of Rabash. It's called Concerning the Importance of Society. So let's see what he says. As you know, this is the last semester we're doing on YouTube. So these lessons from the social writings of Rabash are really directed towards how we need to work together as a group of students so that we can begin to change our nature. We can begin the work of changing our egoistic nature, self-reception, towards bestowal. Okay, all right, so let's carry on. Concerning the importance of society, article number 12, page number 33 in the Rabash Social Writings book here. It is known that one is always among people who have no connection to the work on the path of truth, but to the contrary always resist those who walk on the path of truth. And since people's thoughts mingle, the views of those who oppose the path of truth permeate those with some desire to walk on the path of truth. So here he's making two discernments. We'll go paragraph by paragraph and then explain it. Okay, so it's known that one is always among people who have no connection to the work on the path of truth. So the path of truth is obviously the wisdom of Kabbalah that we're studying. And during the day, when we're out at work, we don't really mix with the friends that are studying Kabbalah with us because we're at work, we're with people on the outside, let's say. Okay, so while we're with them, we're under the influence of that environment. So Rabash says, people who have no connection to the work, which is the people on the outside, on the connection to the work on the path of truth, but to the contrary, always resist those who walk on the path of truth. And since people's thoughts mingle, the views of those who oppose the path of truth permeate those with some desire to walk on the path of truth. So those who study the wisdom of Kabbalah, when they mingle and mix with people on the outside during work, social occasions and so on, they get influenced by their thoughts and desires. So also people on the outside, when they understand and when they know that you're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, there might be some rejection to it. So that's also a negative, some negative impact on your negative energy, let's call it, that sometimes people, when they know you study Kabbalah, they kind of like start to look at you in a negative way. So if they didn't know that was better, that would be better. Hence there is no other solution but to establish a separate society for themselves to be their framework, meaning a separate community that does not mingle with other people whose views differ from the society. And they should constantly evoke in themselves the issue of the purpose of society, so they will not follow the majority, because following the majority is our nature. So Rabash says we should establish a group of people who want to come and study together to advance on the way. Now the way he writes it here is saying that we should, set up a group, separate community that doesn't mingle with other people whose views differ from the society. He doesn't mean let's isolate ourselves and go to I don't know where, so onto some mountaintop. That's not the idea here. Basically what Rabash is saying is we should create an environment in society, right? We're still living in society. I've got work, family, all kinds of people on the outside who don't study wisdom of Kabbalah, but I'm still delving into day-to-day procedures, the flow of life, because we all have to make a living, take care of the family and so on. So on the one hand, we have the external environment which we're into, which we have to live by in the 21st century. And second of all, what we have here is a society that we come together with and then try to influence our thoughts and our desires in a spiritual way. So it's kind of like we're putting a study group together in order to kind of balance the outside world. So the outside is influencing us and we're putting countermeasures so that we don't get influenced by the outside world. If the society isolates itself from the rest of the people, If they have no connection with other people in regards to spiritual matters, and their contact with them is only on corporeal matters, they will not mingle with their views, since they have no connection in matters of spirituality. So he explains it here. It's not that we're detaching ourselves from society, going to some temple on a mountaintop. No, we just don't discuss matters pertaining to spirituality with people who are engaged in corporeality. So spirituality stays in a group of students who study wisdom of Kabbalah, in our study group, and our corporeal actions, thoughts, and the things we need to do in this world in order to survive, they are in the corporeal society. And we kind of like don't mix one with the other. Because if you don't mix your spirituality with the outside world, your spiritual thoughts will not get stained, or your spiritual thoughts will not get influenced. Because the moment you start talking about spiritual matters with people who don't study spirituality, all of a sudden everybody has their own opinion. Okay, everybody knows what it is, and everybody has an understanding of what it is, and they just, brain damage you basically. Okay, and the outside world really is like enough to kill your brain cells. So Kabbalists are very, very, understanding of human nature. It says this, and if you're on the outside and you're mingling with a bunch of friends, the next thing you know, you're going to start thinking like them. So if you study spirituality, study within this group, that you choose, that you guys all came together and built for yourselves, so that all your spirituality stays in the spiritual group, and all your corporeality stays in the corporeal environment. You don't bring corporeality to a spiritual group, and you don't take spirituality and mix it with a corporeal group. But when a person is among religious people and begins to converse and argue with them, he immediately mingles with their views. Their views subconsciously penetrate his mind to such an extent that he will not be able to discern that these are not his own views, but what he received from the people he connected with. So immediately, if you start talking about spirituality with some other people, when he says religious, he means a person following any other method. So there are 4,900 religions, including spiritual methods, all kinds of things, philosophies. So when he's talking about religion, he's just talking about the general, whatever is out there. So once you start talking with them about spirituality, their views, opinions, and so forth begin to influence yours. And he's saying, well, rightfully so, you'll just get influenced by it. Therefore, in matters of work on the path of truth, which is the wisdom of Kabbalah according to Kabbalists, one should isolate oneself from other people only with regards to spiritual work. Okay, we're only isolating our spiritual work from the outside work, or from the outside world. This is because the path of truth requires constant strengthening, since it is against the view of the world. The reason he says it's against the view of the world is because the world is running on a desire to receive. So if people on the outside are working with their desire to receive, while we, on the other hand, want to work with a desire to bestow, there's always going to be some conflict. It's just not going to reconcile. And so he's saying it's just not worth wasting your time there. The view of the world is knowing and receiving, whereas the view of spirituality, or the view of Kabbalah, is faith and bestowal. If one strays from that, he immediately forgets all the work of the path of truth and falls into the world of self-love. Only from a society in the form of "they helped every man his friend" does each person in the society receive the strength to fight against the view of the world. So only by helping each other we can actually gain strength along the path. And we also need to constantly strengthen ourselves, because at the same time as we're advancing, our ego is also advancing. So as this ego is advancing and moving upwards, what we have to understand is that we need to compensate it with strength from the environment, from our spiritual environment, so that it doesn't fall prey to the corporeal environment. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people fall into corporeality, because we're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and a person enters the group, and if the person now doesn't start to invest, start to strengthen oneself in the group, what happens is corporeality is like this. It's like this crow that's constantly biting and, you know, biting a piece off and running away, biting a piece off and running away. It's this. So it's like a hyena, you know, always giving you a bite and then running off, so you can't really catch it and do something with it. So corporeality really surrounds a person, and if a person doesn't strengthen himself, he's like, you know, in the middle of this hyena pack, and they're just biting him from one side, and you don't know what to deal with. So sometimes people get corporeal issues and problems and so forth, and the whole idea of getting corporeal problems in life is actually to give the person some kind of a drive and push to advance in spirituality. But if they haven't strengthened themselves in the society, in the group of Kabbalah students, then they're just going to fall off. And this happens to a lot of people because our ego is constantly growing, so I have to compensate for it. I don't, I'll fall off. Very easy. So everybody, the equation is very easy. So everybody in the group needs to help each other, like the article that we studied earlier. They helped every man his friend. Let's carry on reading. Also we find the following in the words of the Zohar. When a person dwells in a city inhabited by evil people, and he cannot keep the mitzvot of the Torah, which means he cannot keep his spiritual path in his advancement to spirituality. So Torah means the light. Okay, Torah is not some book that the Kabbalists are talking about. When they talk about the Torah, they're talking about the method of attaining the Creator. And when they're talking about mitzvot, they're not talking about religious precepts. They're talking about a person who is now correcting his egoistic nature at a certain level and converting it to bestowal. So mitzvot and Torah means I study spirituality and I correct my egoistic nature and bring it to bestowal, and that's called a mitzvah. It has nothing whatsoever to do with religious precepts. Okay, this is very important to understand, because a lot of people begin to think that we have to do religious things. No, we have to purify our hearts. The more religious things you do, the more self-righteous you'll become, and I'm sure you've all witnessed that in religious communities. Here, Torah means the light of the study, the wisdom that we get from the study, plus the mitzvah is our self-correction, okay, the ability to correct ourselves. And let's read that again. When a person dwells in a city inhabited by evil people, and he cannot keep the mitzvot of the Torah, and does not succeed in the Torah, he relocates and uproots himself from there and plants himself in a place inhabited by good people, with Torah and with mitzvot. So if I'm, in an environment completely in the swamp of corporeality, materialism, I got to get out of there. Okay, it's the swamp. I'll be stuck in it for the rest of my life. So even in the writings of the Zohar, they're saying, listen, you have to be among people who are good people, who want to change themselves for the better, who want to advance in spirituality and be corrected and move forward. This is because the Torah is called tree, as it is written, she's a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her. And man is a tree, as it is written, for is the tree of the field man. And the mitzvot in the Torah and likened unto fruits. And what does it say? Only the trees of which thou knowest that they are not trees of food, trees for food, them thou may destroy and cut down. Destroy from this world and cut down from the next world. So basically, if a person, he's talking about, when he gives us allegory about a tree and a tree in the field and planting the tree in the right environment, he's basically talking about a person planting himself in a right environment. If a person for spirituality is in the right environment, he'll begin to give fruit. That means he'll develop. And according to laws of nature as well, you don't cut fruit. You don't cut trees that bear fruit. Okay, okay, because that's a nice healthy tree and it's giving fruit. So you're only allowed to cut trees that don't really give fruit. So same here with spirituality. If a person is advancing in spirituality, he wants to be fruitful, he wants to actually advance in spirituality, and if he's not in a good environment, then he's just going to dry out and end up dead. For this reason, one must uproot himself from the place where there are wicked, for he will not be able to succeed there in his spirituality and correction, and plant himself elsewhere among righteous people, and he will succeed in spirituality and his corrections. And man, whom the Zohar compares to the tree of the field, suffers like the tree of the field from bad neighbors. In other words, we must always cut down the bad weeds around us that affect us. And we must also keep away from bad environments and from people who do not favor the path of truth. We need a careful watch so as to not be drawn to follow them. So as you can see, even if you're in a good environment, you still have to work on maintaining that environment. So just like a tree can be planted in really good soil, that tree could be inundated with all kinds of weeds and all kinds of bad influences from the environment. So a farmer who's looking after trees is going to make sure that those trees are nice, have place to grow, there are no weeds around. So it's all like, every year you've got to look after those trees on a constant basis. So the same with the person who wants to advance in spirituality. He always has to make sure that he's in a correct and good environment so he can constantly grow more and more. This is called isolation, when one has thoughts of the single authority called bestowal and not public authority, which is self-love. This is called two authorities, the Creator's authority and one's own authority. Now we can understand that what our sages said. Rav Yehuda said, Rav said, Adam HaRishon was heretic, as it is written, and the Lord God called unto man and said unto him, Where are you? Where has thine heart gone? In Rashi's interpretation, heretic refers to a tendency towards idol worship. And in the commentary, Etz Yosef, it is written that book Etz Yosef is Joseph's tree, by the way. So in the book Joseph's tree, it is written, when it writes, where has thine heart gone? It is heresy, as it is written, that ye go not about after your own heart. This is heresy, when his heart leans towards the other side. So in the wisdom of Kabbalah, when we're talking about being heretic, is when we follow our desire to receive. So he's not talking about, building yourself, some kind of god out of wood or stone and bowing to it. No, a person who follows his desire to receive and goes after it, and forgets the path of truth, forgets the Creator, doesn't think about the Creator, doesn't think about the meaning of life, why he was created and what he needs to attain, then that person is called a heretic. But all this is very perplexing. How can it be said that Adam HaRishon was inclined towards idolatry, not adultery? Or according to the Etz Joseph commentary, that he was in the form of that ye go not about after your own heart. Is it heresy? According to what we learn about the work of spirituality, that it is solely about the aim to bestow. If a person works in order to receive, this work is foreign to us, for we need to work only to bestow, and he took everything in order to receive. So exactly, once again, he's opening up to us this concept of heresy. Heresy is basically just going after your desire to receive corporeal reality. You're completely out of it. No spirituality, nothing. And if you follow that kind of life, that's called heresy, because you're not going towards the Creator. So if a person is not directed towards the Creator and is directed after chasing all of his corporeal desires, then that person is called that he's in heresy. So Adam was apparently in that kind of a state. So Adam was now going after his desire to receive. So he fell into a state of heresy. Now this actually happens to people in the wisdom of Kabbalah, and we're supposed to experience it. So this concept of heresy is not a bad thing. In reality, there's nothing bad. In reality, we just need to use all these situations that we're going through so that we can understand our nature, and we can actually move forward and start to make a higher degree, so we can start to build the next step on our spiritual path. So these things are necessary as it was necessary for Adam. This is the meaning of what he said, that he failed in go not about after your own heart. In other words, he could not take the eating from the tree of knowledge in order to bestow, but received the eating from the tree of knowledge in order to receive. This is called heart, meaning the heart wishes only to receive for self-gratification. And this was the sin of the tree of knowledge. To understand the matter, see the introduction to the book Panim Masbrot. And from this we can understand the benefits of the society. It can introduce a different atmosphere, one of working only in order to bestow. All right, once again, this is referring to, if you recall from the previous semesters, we talked about free will. We talked about our human nature and how our human nature was always going after fulfilling its desires, which is what everybody else is going after, which is the normal thing to do because that's our nature, and there's nothing really to complain about anyone regarding that matter. However, though, when we start to study spirituality, the wisdom of Kabbalah in our case, what happens is a person is not only studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, but he's also living his corporeal life, because we don't go into a monastery, okay? We're not nuns and monks. So we don't go up onto a mountaintop in Tibet and isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. That is not how it should be according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. According to the wisdom of Kabbalah, you should incorporate yourself with the world. Okay, there's a reason that the whole world is created. There's a reason for everyone's creation. So we can't really say any person in the world is created and should not have been created, and we can't really say anything or anyone is redundant in reality. So a student of Kabbalah must really be inside the whole, this whole corporeal world. This is why we have family, we have kids, we work. So we're involved with everything that's relative to corporeality as well. We have to go and make our own living and so forth. And at the same time, though, if we want to advance in spirituality, so on the one hand, I have to take care of my body because we live here, and there are necessities like food, family, shelter, clothing, those things which we have to take care of. Plus, what we have to do is, Kabbalists are saying, well, on top of that as well, you need to take care of your soul. And the only way to do that is to actually have an environment where you can grow in it. So everything that we do when we're advancing in the wisdom of Kabbalah is that we've got two options right in front of us. So I can either go after my desire to receive, or I can go after my spiritual desire to bestow. So the society, spiritual society, will be able to develop me in spirituality, and corporeal world, that actually takes care of my corporeal needs. So a student of Kabbalah must reconcile these things. We're not deleting one or the other. We're using both of them. And this is very, very important. And a lot of people find it very hard and challenging because they can't reconcile each other. So the more we advance in spirituality, we have to understand that corporeality needs to, for us, take a new definition. It needs to take a new form. But this new form must come to a person through the understanding of the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah. So as we study, we begin to understand our nature. We begin to understand the purpose of life a bit more clearer. So within all these ups and downs, inner conflicts, misunderstandings, disagreements with everything that's happening to us on the corporeality, and at the same time trying to advance in spirituality, what we really need to do is work closely with an environment, and with that environment we can actually bring meaning to the things that we're going through in corporeality. Okay, so for us to be helped, for us to be strengthened, we need a strong environment where there's a good bunch of friends, there's strong they're dedicated, they all want to work together, and when they come together, they actually give force. At an individual level, we're all weak. Okay, none of us are heroes around here. At an individual level, we're all weak. But when we all come together, that unity creates immense strength. And that actually gives you the ability to move forward. And that actually gives you the understanding and the ability to overcome life and the difficulties of life as well. So the environment, just like with anything, the same thing actually goes when we're raising children, don't we? We like to put them in a good environment. We don't want them to, I mean, if we love our children, we definitely don't want to put them in a bad environment where they could be hurt or they could get into dangerous things, you know. So even with children, even with parenting, we are intuitively knowledgeable about the importance of environment and how we need to make sure that the children grow up in a nice, safe environment. We fail to do that, our kids will either be criminals or they'll get hurt, or both. If you're a criminal, you often get hurt. So this is a very, very important aspect in any spiritual method, and you'll find this in many methods as well. Everybody's got their own environment because they want to make sure they advance. The same in science. So if you want to be a great scientist, let's say in physics or chemistry, you're not really going to hang out with people who are, I don't know, who are football fans and going to the match all the time and they've got nothing to do with science. Okay? I'm not saying football fans don't love science or anything, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that, you know, there's a difference in groups, okay? So don't misunderstand me. A person can like football and also be a scientist. But I'm just saying that a scientist who really wants to develop himself in his science wants to surround himself with a lot of power from other scientists so he can learn from them. He can develop with them, because the more friends I have around me, actually, I learn more from each of them. So I actually kind of enhance my growth exponentially in order to advance much, much faster than in a regular environment where I would be on my own, or if I was on my own, there'd be no way of continuing this for a long time in any case, simply because the books are very hard to understand. So we definitely need a guide, we need friends to help us along the way, and we need to incorporate ourselves and invest in the group so that we can make a smooth progress. And we can actually measure our progress in that way as well. So here comes into the study, while we're studying in the group, freedom of choice. Also, here comes when we're studying into the group, here comes to us the decisions that we have to make. What should I restrict in my life? Do I want to restrict anything? What should I cut down on my life in order to put more into spirituality? Is there a sacrifice I can give? Is there something in my life that's, you know, that I feel now is wasting my time? And maybe I could devote that to spirituality. So as a person advances, he begins to start discerning his inner growth and how he can strengthen that inner growth by actually becoming, in the 21st century, a minimalist. Which is actually quite interesting, Anthony, because I read in an article that the world is actually going towards minimalism, which is actually great. Finally, actually, we're getting there from our nature. The reason is, as we receive more and more in life, with all these Black Fridays, I don't know, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, double Cyber Monday, I don't know, they've got a bunch of Cyber Mondays now. You get another 20% off on another Cyber Monday.
They even added Small Business Saturday.
There you go.
Looking out for the little guy.
Okay, there you go. Looking out for the little guy. As you see, the more we advance in life, and our ego is now, you know, really rotting, the more people are trying to find ways to sell goods, but we really won't get any satisfaction. Most of the stuff we buy, we throw away. Most of them, if you look at your life, a lot of the things that you buy, you just throw them away. It's just this initial excitement of buying something, and then once you get what you want, that's it. You know, your desire and fulfillment, as we learned previously, just evaporates. So you have to now run after another desire. But the new generation of humanity in the 21st century is really, that's it. They're not really going in towards materialism anymore. It's very, very interesting to see how society is now evolving, that people are becoming, less interested in all this consumption. This is why they have to bring out all these things like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Little Business Saturday. I don't know what else they're going to bring forward. So all these things are coming up simply because we as humanity are just not there anymore. We're beginning to actually have a sensation through natural evolvement, through natural development, really over centuries, thousands of years, that life is surely not about shopping. Okay, I'm sure you can find a few people who disagree with that. I certainly know a few people who would. Okay, however though, I think the new generation is coming to that. So it's a good trend to see where the new generation is going towards minimalism, living with less. Instead of big houses and big cars, you know what? I'm happy with a small place and my small life. So it's an interesting thing to see, actually.
I've even seen a lot of the younger generation are also living with their parents until till longer ages now.
Mm-hmm.
I see in the States it's becoming more common to see a 30, 34-year-old still living at home. Where when I was growing up at 18, you're ready to bolt out the door.
That's right.
So things have changed a lot, definitely.
That's right. Same with me, at my generation as well. I was at 17 when I left home. I said, that's it, I've got to go and start making a life for yourself. But you're right, now people in their 30s and so forth are still at home. Well, it's actually it's nothing to be criticized. We just need to observe these things because they're trends in the natural evolvement of humanity. So there's nothing good or bad about it. It's just an interesting trend because they're at home with their parents. They have everything there. Mum's still cooking. She's still doing the laundry and everything. So kids are comfortable, so they don't want to leave. Okay. However, though, it's also really limiting growth. It's really limiting a person's growth because the more you stay in the house, the more you're like, a kid that never kind of grows up. And but in our case, same here. What we have to do is, as we choose the environment to get stronger and stronger, we begin to understand what is redundant in corporeality and what is necessary in corporeality. And these necessities we certainly have to keep as necessities of life. So obviously you need all the necessities of life, your phone. A 21st century modern person needs a place to stay, a vehicle, phone, a regular normal house, and so forth. So all of these are necessities, and there's nothing to be judged about them. How much you eat, where you live, how you live, what car you drive. None of these are relevant to spirituality at all, actually. But a person begins to understand him or herself much better and can begin to now resonate certain things in life with the desire to receive. Just like kids are growing up. As they grow up, they don't play with the same toys anymore. And why? Because they're just over it. So as we study the wisdom of Kabbalah, as we kind of mature up spiritually as well, we begin to leave all these toys behind, just like a kid growing up. So it's a very, very special process of development while you're going through it in the group with the study and the guide and so forth. It's a really wonder how you can witness the personal change that you go through with the environment and the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Now, do we have any questions?
Not as of now.
Not as of now. Okay. So I do believe we've got a few more lessons left under our belt. This article today that we learned was referring to the society in terms of relating to also the freedom of will, free choice, what we need to do together, how we need to work together in order to advance on the path. And it's also touching on the article, they all helped each other in the previous lesson that not this previous one, the few lessons before that we studied, how each person can really help his friend, her friend, to advance in spirituality in order to elevate our consciousness to a higher level of existence. So this article is pretty much summarizing for us the importance of society, the importance of the community, let's say, or the Kabbalah group. So without actually a group, it is really impossible for a person to grow spiritually. The reason being is, imagine yourself on your own. Okay, imagine that you are on your own in a forest or on top of a mountain somewhere, and you didn't have much contact with people. Now, the lack of contact basically is diminishing the sensations you get from connection. Because if I'm not around people, I don't get influenced, I don't get any feedback, there's nothing to really ignite in me any emotion. Instead, what you have, you've got the rocks, the trees, plants around you, and animals. Okay? So what you're fed from is that environment, the still vegetative and the animate environment, but not the environment of human connection. So what that happens, in that case, what happens is you basically degrade yourself more, you become less, because you haven't actually developed the human contact, the human connection level, which we're supposed to add on to our development. So if your environment all of a sudden becomes isolated and you don't have friends and you don't have anyone around you and so forth, and you're living in this state of isolation, then your development as a human being is very, very restricted, and it's not realistic at all, even if you read 1,000 books. Because reading from books is knowledge, but knowledge is not a sensation. It's, in my mind, something I read and now I know. Do I know if it's truth or not? I have to sense it, feel it, to say, yeah, this is true. So when we're studying spirituality, this is why it's so important to be delving into corporeality as well, to be walking like on two legs, if you like. Corporeality and spirituality have to go together. So in order for us to delve into that and get deep into that, we need this humanity around us, so we can get corporeal feedback, we can discern how we're influenced by corporeality, and also spirituality, the spiritual environment, so that we can actually get spiritual discernments, and then we can start to kind of like work with everything that's going on inside of us, in one kind of machine, in one mesh, let's call it. So this is why isolating oneself from the environment and not connecting with other people actually, really brings the person to a lower level, because you end up being the product of any environment you're in. So if you got no friends, no connection with a lot of people around you, you see people every now and then, but you're living in a farm with your animals, you actually begin to start talking with your animals, right? That's what happens. You can see this on people who've got pets as well, right? So you've got pets in the house. The pet is actually influencing you. And then you begin to have conversations with pets. And I've seen some weird people having some weird conversations with their pets, okay? Why? Because the lack of human contact. All right? So this is very important to understand, that even if you've got pets in the house running around, it's because the animate level is a lower level. You're kind of like, going down to that level, because you can't really expect the dog to become a human. So if you're at a higher level and you're delving into that environment with all the animals and everything, you're actually beginning to kind of like delve in there. Now, I'm not saying pets are bad. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I'm just giving an example here, okay? So you can have pets, not a problem. I'm just saying that everything around us, everything that surrounds us is influencing us. And if you've got pets in the house, great. Maybe you can also now be consciously aware of how that relationship is going. It's good to kind of measure yourself, because I used to have a dog as well, and after it passed away, I said, that's it, I'm never going to have a pet again, because it was really bad when he passed away. So I felt really bad about it, and then I said,
I'm not the only one. All right, yeah. I don't like dogs ever since my dog.
Yeah. So that's why I said, you know what, I'm not going to have a dog again. It's like, I'm not going to do it, because I felt really sad about it. But I'm giving this as an example because I could feel it on myself as well. You begin to have a dialogue with your dog, and all of a sudden, just turns into a conversation, and then at that time it's not weird, but afterwards you think about it, you think, wait, I just had a conversation with my dog. So afterwards you begin to measure yourself, and it can turn a little tricky. So having humanity around us on the corporeal level is important for a student of Kabbalah, and also strictly spirituality, where the environment is really strong and holding us together, is also very, very important. So I can balance everything out and I can advance in spirituality. And it's really important not to mix spirituality with the people on the outside, because sometimes when you talk to people about the meaning of life and so forth, they think you're weird. And it's true. For them, you become some kind of a weirdo. Yesterday you were all good, but now you're talking to them about the meaning of life, and they're thinking, what's the matter with this guy? What's his problem? So be very mindful about that. Keep everything in the family, as they say. Corporeality there and spirituality there. All right. Have we got any viewers live? We had a few viewers live last time, so we've got a few questions in. But it doesn't look like we've got a few questions in today. However, no problem at all. You can watch this anytime you like.
We do have live views, but no questions.
Okay, not a problem. Well, we have finished the article for today. So in the interim, I suggest you go over the material if you enjoyed it, if you like it, especially the previous lessons if you haven't watched it, because we're kind of like building you up from first semester, second semester, third semester. And the whole idea that these lessons are on YouTube are simply because we want to introduce the wisdom of Kabbalah to people who have a dot in the heart, who really are yearning for the answer to the meaning of life. Why are we living? Why are we going through all these things in life? What's the meaning of it all? Because we don't really have any understanding of how this world works, why we were created, who created us, what for. All these questions are all, are all blank. They don't have any answer to. So it's like causing us a lot of grief. So the wisdom of Kabbalah really explains these things in a scientific way. So if you wish to study, keep on watching, and if you wish to afterwards join, some kind of a procedural study framework, then you can always get in touch with us, and we'll be more than happy to help you. In the interim, next week we're also going to have another lesson, again from Rabash's social writings. Until then, I wish you all a happy and great day.